It's the time of the season.
Hello and welcome to the GenXplainers podcast, The Perfect Song. Today we're doing a slightly older song, Time of the Season by The Zombies. And this song was nominated by none other than Alan. So Alan, why don't you give us a little background on this one?
Sure. So The Zombies were a British band in the 60s. I believe they started right around 1960. And they continued, and I don't think they made it out of the 60s, although they've had reunion tours, etc. They had a couple of fairly decent-sized hits before they recorded the album Odyssey and Oracle, which is the album that Time of the Season is from. It was recorded in 1967 and released in 1968. There weren't any kind of clear winners from the album, and it sold okay, but not particularly well. And the band then broke up and they ceased to be. And then about a year later, Time of the Season became popular, especially in the United States. The band resisted, any kind of push to reform because the song was popular. I think it hit number 3 in the charts. I don't quote me on that, but not that people are quoting me. But it did very well in the United States. They didn't wind up touring in support of it. They didn't reform. They have, again, like everyone does, reunion tours in the 2000s because that's what the 2000s are about. But I nominated it because it is instantly kind of catchy. It starts with a very kind of sparse psychedelic sound. Actually, it doesn't even start off psychedelic. It starts off with the sparse sound. You've got the drums, you've got the light with the bass and the singer.
And let me try with pleasured hands to take you in the sun to promised lands, to show you everyone.
And then later in the middle of the song, it erupts with this very psychedelic keyboard music. It was written by Rod Argent, who was the keyboardist for the group. So evocative of psychedelic music, so evocative of the 60s, and it just instantly grabs you. Whether you like it or not, this song will instantly grab you, I think.
Yeah, I think it does. Obviously, I don't remember when I first heard it, but I remember hearing it on the radio. I'd heard it before many years ago, and it shows up in commercials and things. But just sort of through osmosis, I've heard the song, and that beginning, the way it's produced, the stereo separation of it, and the bass with the pop click and then a kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's really memorable, and it's really cool. It's kind of spooky, and it's really, really stands out. How about you, Mike? What do you think of the song? Your general thoughts?
Yeah, well, it definitely was used in commercials, as you said, because I think it probably sold a lot of cars at some point. But in the particular case of this song, and this goes back to our defining what's a perfect song, this is one of those songs that I think that you could listen to now and listen to back then, and it doesn't seem like it came from a particular time or era. And that's what I think a perfect song does. So I mean, I know we haven't gotten to that question yet, but in my mind, I can listen to this song now and listen to it 40 years ago, and it has the same effect on me. And that's what I like so much about it, is that it defines a mood rather than a time. I think that all the things that you've said already about like the sound and the music itself and all the elements of it work together really well, and it becomes this sort of, I guess, a track that I can't really shake. very easily, and I think that it's really pretty impressive for the kind of hypnotic elements of the song itself.
Yeah,
and
that's a good word for it.
Yeah, it's really hypnotic, and it's catchy, and it's pretty poetic a lot of times too. It has this sort of romance to it, but it also has a sort of ethereal quality to it. It's very interesting.
It has something that we've talked about before when we were discussing what makes a song great or perfect. It's very evocative. The memory in my mind of it was like, oh yeah, that song is a good song, but I don't like the chord. When they sing the title line, I don't like it because it's one of those very 60s harmony things. Oh, that's, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that kind of late 60s Summer of Lovey thing.
It's the time of the season for loving.
But to be honest, listening to it now, again, when I listen to it again, I'm like, oh, that doesn't bother me. It's fine. It works. So that was like my one preconceived notion about it. It's like, that line's going to bug me because it's so like hippy dippy, but no, it's fine.
It's funny, in retrospect, I mean, I know what you're talking about. For me, that chorus, they're all singing, it's the time of the sea for loving. It's very culty to me. Like they're all, we are in unison. We are now going to procreate.
Right. Yeah. You envision an open field with a tent put up and people sitting. Mm-hmm. It's the time. Come on, people.
And Alan alluded to this earlier, which I thought was great. That when they release a song, it did not become a hit immediately, and by the time it actually became a huge hit, they already broken up.
Yeah.
It became a really huge signature song and still around. I mean, still discussed by podcasts. And
they recorded it where Beatles recorded Abbey Road.
That's right.
At Abbey Road.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Abbey Road Studios.
Oh, there you go. I love the classic call and response.
Yeah.
What's your name? What's your name? Who's your daddy? And that phrase has become it wasn't a meme, but it became like a catchphrasey thing that you heard, I mean, years later.
Yeah, I think it was around before then too. I think you hear that a lot in like blues songs.
Oh, it was? Who's your daddy?
Yeah. It's actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, who's your daddy? The origins of that phrase have to do with sex workers and pimps.
Well, it stood the test of time.
We hope you're enjoying this GenXplainers podcast. Remember to find us and follow us on social media. Give us a like, a follow, or support us on Patreon. And we'd much appreciate a 5-star rating on the podcast platform of your choice. Now, let's get back to the show.
Alan, I'll let you ask the question, whether,
Well,
why don't you answer the question first? Is it a perfect song?
I will try with pleasured hands.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, that's from the song.
It's the time of the season for pleasured hands.
Yes. It's kind of, this podcast is going in an interesting direction. I am going to say, so I nominated it. So I clearly had an inclination towards it. I do think it's a perfect song. So I'm not even going to justify it. I'm just going to throw it out there.
The discussion itself either justified it or didn't for people. What I have written down is I say yes, or at least very close. The line I wrote down was 2 psychedelic keyboard solos might be one too many, but the one at the end that adds to the chaos of how it ends is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think maybe if they did something slightly different with the first one, that wasn't just a freeform solo. Again, it was the 60s, but look, maybe if it was just a teaser of the end solo, which really brings it home, then for sure it's perfect, but I don't know.
You're such a structuralist.
I am. I can't help it.
No, you are.
I totally am. It makes me
criticism.
It makes me feel comfortable. All right,
I'm going to say it actually is a perfect song. And I don't feel like I should have to justify it since Alan didn't. But I'm going to anyway.
How come the person not thinking it's perfect is the one that has to justify it?
Actually, I'll just say this. I think it's perfect. And some of the best reasons for it were the ones that Mike articulated, I think.
Yeah.
I personally, like I said earlier, and I knew you were, I was leading towards this, and already in the earlier comments, I can listen to it now and listen to it 40 years ago, and it had the same impact on me. And that's really important in a song that is quote unquote perfect or timeless. And that's how I think this is leaning, how I define these, what I will feel about it 30 more years from now.
You'll be dead.
What the fuck?
We'll all be dead. We'll all be dead. And the only true
30 years. I mean, yeah, most likely.
No. Hey.
The only way you'll truly be able to pay tribute to the song is if you put it on your tombstone. Lyrics. In fact, on your tombstone, it should say, "What's your name? Who's your dad?"
Mine's going to say, "Me try with pleasured hands."
All right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So you say yes, Mike, basically.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you kind of the evocative thing, and I thought, and the timelessness thing as well. That goes a long way to sort of push it there, I think.
So anyway. I feel like there's 2 solid yeses and 1 qualified yes.
I have a qualified yes. Yeah. I and it probably was just I was in a mood when I listened to it. I'm like, not everything's perfect. Hippies. No. So great. Sounds good. Well, if you haven't heard the song, check it out. And thanks for listening. And have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again. Say bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this GenXplainers podcast. Follow us on Instagram and friend us on Facebook. Just search for GenXplainers and find us on Patreon, where you can support the channel and gain access to extended cuts of the podcast as well as exclusive bonus content. See you next time.